Testing. Hello, everyone. Has anyone lost a cell phone? If so, it will be at the AV table. It is a red iPhone. And it was sitting in the chairs.
Want to come up here? Oh, good. Hi, everyone. I'm at the pulpit over here. Thank you for staying and eating lunch with us and staying for this all-church meeting. We wanted to take the time to for all of us to get focused together. So you have a few things at your disposal. I have handed out a very long document that I am asking you to read when you get home or when you're bored, maybe. Yeah, maybe if you need help going to sleep. But read through it. Take your time. The idea is that we are hearing your voice. This is a culmination of a lot of conversation with church leadership and just observations from me being here for the last 10 months. But I guarantee you that we missed something. And I guarantee you that we got something wrong. And so I want to hear from you. We all want to hear from you. So take your time, read through this packet, and there is a survey link in it that will also be emailed to you tomorrow. So please be honest in your feedback. We want to hear from you because this is about all of our church, not just where the pastor is saying where to go. This is a cumulative conversation. This is what that is. So you also we have some note cards flying around too, blue note cards. And if you need a note card, go ahead and raise your hand. I have someone handing them out for us. The idea for the note cards today is if you have a thought while we're talking, go ahead and jot it down and just leave it on your seat. And we'll pick it up afterwards. So I want to be clear what this is not. This conversation that we are having is not a 3 or 5 or 10-year plan. That's not what this is. This is not mile markers to tell us where we're going. That's not it. It is not a vision meeting. We don't have a vision yet, to be honest. We are still talking about what that vision is, but church leadership can't form a vision without hearing from you, because this is your church. You are helping lead into the future. But what this is a reflection of what we are witnessing, what the current environment is, where we are at this point in time as a church in Flagstaff. And it's a dialogue to introduce strategic conversation regarding THUMC's future. And again, you contribute into that conversation. You contribute into the strategic direction where God is leading us. This is God's church here. It is not my church, and it is not church council's church. It is all of our church. And so that's why we are having this conversation. But before we dive into some specifics, I thought it'd be fun to talk about our history a little bit. So this church started on October 1st, 1967, which was World Communion Day. And you know what? We couldn't find the year that the fellowship hall was built. Who knows? Come on, who knows? Somebody's got to know. Around 1970. All right, I'll take it. It was the first building that this church worshiped in here on this campus. Fellowship Hall, it's just down that way. And it was the only building. And then y'all added on Sunday school rooms, a hallway in between Fellowship Hall and Celebration Hall in the late 80s. And then you kept on growing into this space here, and this was built in 2000, or around there. The Spirit has moved in this church, and this church is well known in Flagstaff. And our hope is that we continue to be known in Flagstaff, that we continue to use what God has given us to the best of our ability, and we celebrate what God has given us, because we have seen big moves here. So I think we should just take a moment and recognize that. That's a really big win to see the growth that this church has had and how the movement has occurred. So I'm just so grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be the pastor of this church because I can tell there is a fire here, a fire that is ready to keep burning and to grow and to share with the community and with the world. And that's really exciting to be here at this point in time. So thank you for keeping that spark alive. Thank you for showing up every week and every day to make this church a possibility here in Flagstaff. I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues. I have Keith here. He is our church council chair, and Marcia Brown is our lay leader. So these are really good people to know and talk to when you don't want to talk to me. Talk to them.
Next slide. Is this on? Can you hear me? Up a little bit? Okay. So I get some of the duller part of the presentation. I get the metrics and some of our trends. I really want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, it's positive. You know, if you look at this graph, you want to focus on the top line, which is the combination of our in-person and our online worship. It shows the blue line shows a real dip, and of course that's COVID. And the upper black line is the combination of the two. And so we look around and we wonder, well, how poor is the attendance? And that's a metric. But it actually, when we do it this way, it really doesn't look that bad. It's not great, but it's on a positive uptick is the way I would describe it. And I think when I look at it and I'm in church, I see a general trend that the in-person worship numbers continue to grow, and we continue to fill more seats in this space, which is all positive. Okay, next slide. Okay, another metric. I said I got the dull stuff. The baptisms and new memberships. You can see that we haven't really reached some of the peaks that we've had in the past, but at least the orange line, which is the number of new members, continues to grow, and it's a nice. That's really a positive. All I can say is it's a positive trend for our church. Next slide. Okay, pledges. What I'd really like to say on behalf of Catherine Fox, our finance chair, is pledging really helps when we're trying to prepare a budget for the year. And one of the things I'd really encourage people to do is to pledge so we know how to develop the budget, so we can know what we're going to work with over the coming year. You're very generous. We continue to get a larger portion of the pledge amounts in January and February, which helps the budget and helps the trend. I would say that the expenses for the year and for the past years have pretty much matched our income. We have had a discussion last year about whether we needed to pay our apportionments. The district superintendent said, oh, in churches that are in dire stress, don't really need, we'll work it through. Well, we had another conversation about mid-year, this is mid-year, a couple months ago with our district superintendent. He said, if you're out of dire distress, you really do need to pay your apportionments. So just an update for those. We did pay our full apportionment. Well, you pay the apportionment on a monthly basis. We took some money out of our savings, about $24,000, and we are up to date with our apportionments for the conference, which is very critical. That's the outreach of the United Methodist Church throughout the world, and that's really the only way that happens. As you can see, we're very close. I don't read numbers off of slides. We're very, very close to the budget expenses versus income. Next slide. Okay, I have a few words about the capital campaign. I think it's about 3 years ago. Oh, it got louder. Okay. Roughly 3 years ago, I was chair of the trustees, and I went in and I spoke with Pastor, Lynn. Okay, thank you. Okay, how time goes. And I said, do you think this church needs a capital campaign? And we walked around and looked at all the duct tape that was on the floor to keep people from tripping on the carpet. And we tried opening a few of the windows in the older portion, and one of them fell out on us. And she said, I think you really need to start a capital campaign. And then 2 weeks later, she announced that she was leaving. And I thought, oh, this is going to be really interesting to see what happens. It wasn't her choice. She went to Tucson. But I thought, I don't know how this is going to work out. Anyhow, we asked for about $300,000 in pledges. To date, we've received about $237,000. The numbers here don't quite add up when you look at them, because we received some seed money that first year from the finance committee to get things started and get some windows ordered and things like that. We're not there. We have more to do. Some of the projects, you're standing on one of the ones that was one of the largest, and the windows were also one of the largest. A couple things left to do, and that's the parking lot ceiling and fixing or replacing really the south wall of the ground floor where the offices are. It's only a single pane glass, and I don't think there's any insulation in the wall, so it's a pretty tough one. Our architect, Tim Whiteside, has got plans for what we're going to be doing, and I thought I saw contractors walking around with Rob to help define the scope of work there. Landscaping. Anyhow. Feel pretty good about the capital campaign. I want to jump back. Something else I should have set up when we're doing, well, we can do it on both of these. there were many years the church did not have an audit, and it's part of the Book of Discipline that you're supposed to have an audit every year. Well, this year we had an auditor come in. She spent roughly a week with us. The only complaint was she didn't spend enough time talking one-on-one with us, and so some of the things that she wrote in the audit report we're already doing. But there were no significant findings, any issues with the audit that she uncovered. There's a few procedural things, but nothing of any significance. Felt pretty good about the audit, and it's something that we plan to do annually, as we're supposed to do under the Book of Discipline. So I think that's where I transition to Marcia, right? Okay.
Okay, I guess we need another slide. So one of the things that Church Council talked about, and I think we had a planning meeting in here in January, was we talked about green flags and yellow flags and red flags. And the green flags are things that we're doing right here and things that are positive that Trinity Heights has going for us. And one of those most important parts of that, the green flags, are that we, the people of Trinity Heights, are deeply committed to being God's light in the world, and that's a huge thing. We've got strong and capable leaders here. We're willing to experiment and try new things to reach new people. Trinity Heights has an incredible campus, and our natural beauty is a really strong asset. We love all people, and we're ready to make space for diverse and multi-generational ministries to happen. That's not to say that we're a very diverse church right now. If you look around, it's pretty obvious that we're not, but we are open and ready to be more inviting and be more welcoming to all people. And we've worked hard to ensure that we're not in debt. This whole campus has been paid for, and as Keith talked about, we've made sure that we got caught up on our apportionments, and we're in pretty good shape financially. So those are all really good green flags. The yellow flags are things that we could use improving on that are maybe not urgent, but things that we could do better at. One of the things is our campus. We've got a huge space here, and now, especially now that the ARC is closed, a lot of that space is not being utilized. I think Lauren estimated we're maybe using 40% of our space right now. So there's a lot of things that we could do to make our space available to the community, maybe make it an income-producing thing, rent out some of the space, and that sort of thing. We've also formed a landscape task force to try to improve the landscaping around the campus. And this summer, we've got a couple of young people that have been working really hard at getting the weeds down and taking out the juniper in the front by the office, and you've probably seen some other things that they've been working on around here. But eventually we want to do some more professional landscaping changes. Our workflow processes are sometimes hindering momentum. We are not as efficient as we could be in how we get things done. We need to work on updating those processes and communicating with you, the congregation, on how we can be more efficient with our resources. This includes incorporating more software that will allow us to keep better track of our guests and our members alike. And we have purchased and begun implementing Planning Center Online, which is an online church management system. And soon we're going to be having online check-in with the greeters are going to be checking people in, so we won't have to do it with the little QR code and when we come into church. It'll be a lot simpler process for registering. And it'll also allow us to keep track of people that are coming as visitors for the first time so that we can stay in touch with them without harassing them. We wanted them to know that we're glad that they came, and is there anything that we could do to encourage them to come back? And volunteer involvement. I mentioned in the green flags that we have a strong leadership group here, but as in a lot of churches, probably less than 20% of the regular attenders here are actively involved in the ministries of this church. So there's a lot that we can do to build our volunteer base. There's every one of you here, there's something that you could be doing to build this church and to build our presence in the community. So that's one of the yellow flags. And then, let's see, conflict resolution. Lauren has been more aware than I have because she's new here and she can see things more clearly that we kind of have a culture of avoiding conflict in this church instead of dealing directly with the people that, if we have a disagreement about something, we don't go to the person that we're disagreeing with, we go to a third party and say, would you talk to them? And that's really not a healthy way to be. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything else about that, Lauren. I didn't know if I explained that very well, the triangulation, or you're going to do that? Okay. Opportunities for connection. We have a desire to connect with God and to one another and the world, and our dream is that our church would look like the hospital and not like a playground for saints, but we're going to be filled with people from all backgrounds, ages, and perspectives, and we want to focus on that. We want to focus on the word and prayer and community formation for all people. We also want to maintain a sustainable budget, and we've been working diligently to do that, Keith especially, and Catherine, but we still need to work on that because the current budget kind of restricts our ability to be innovative, and we want to make sure that we have room in the budget to experiment and try new things. So let's see, our facilities rental agreement has been updated so that we can now rent facilities not only for one-time use, like we've rented out this sanctuary for concerts and funerals and things like that before, but now we can also rent out portions of the building for long-term rentals, and that will be a good income stream for the church, and we can also be selective about who we rent to and whether their purposes are consistent with our purposes as a church. So red flags that we discussed in January are things that needed urgent attention, and some of those things have been addressed already. One of the main thing we talked about was safety. We realized that we don't really have anything in place for active shooter situation, and we've got people that are working on that now. We also realized that the facilities weren't really set up to make them really safe and secure for children, even though we had the ARC here. So some things have been done to try to make this a safer space for children as well. So it includes creating the safe sanctuaries, cybersecurity, and gun awareness policies. Oh, there's where the triangulation was. That was a red flag, I guess. I said that in the yellow flags. So, yeah, do you want to talk about the triangulation then?
Thank you. Triangulation is, as you know, when you have a problem with somebody, but you don't talk to them directly. You go and talk to somebody else about it, and then they go and tell the person that you had the beef with. I'm sorry, I can't think of a better word but beef, because it's really what it is. Instead, we want to avoid triangulation. It is one of the fastest ways to kill a church, because it creates gossip, and it creates hostility and resentment that you don't even know is there. How can you grow with people in your community if you're resentful to them? And so it becomes a barrier very quickly, and we just don't have a lot of tolerance for it. Jesus invites us to have direct conversations with people we're in conflict with. It says, go to your brother and sister if you have a problem with them. And if they don't listen, then you bring in another person to mediate. And if they don't listen, then you bring it to the larger church. That is how we want to live in conflict. We like conflict. Conflict is good. Conflict pushes us to the next level. We want that. We don't want consensus. That's not helpful. That doesn't allow diversity. But we do want healthy conflict. So that's what we mean by avoiding triangulation. And if I can say something real quick about safety too, safety is a really big deal, not only because we want people to feel safe here. We want people to feel like they can thrive and be themselves, of course. But also, there is a legality piece of this. Churches are sued all the time because they made a poor choice in judgment. I know of one church years ago, they took a group of youth kids on a trip, and it was great. And they were heading home, and they had the person who was allowed to drive the van, who was on the insurance, they got tired. So a well-meaning volunteer said, "I'll drive." And then they sadly got in an accident, and a youth passed away from that accident. And so then the church was sued because they had somebody who was not authorized to be driving their van. And the accident wasn't even their fault. And it killed that church. They fought that battle for years and years and years, and they lost a lot of money, and they lost a lot of growth over a lawsuit that everybody was mourning the loss of this child. And instead, their attention was turned to legal matters. So when we talk about safety, it's to protect not only the individual, but to protect this church too. We want all to be safe here. And that includes children, yes, but also vulnerable adults. That means having a good policy in place that makes sure anybody who could be abused can't, because we don't cultivate an environment that allows that. So that's why we're so focused on those two things, because they will kill this church very quickly. That's why we talk about it. I think am I up the next slide? I've lost my place, I'm sorry. Yes. So the next steps that we want to talk about is, the first is to heal from any wounds we might be carrying, that we might be bringing to the table. Whether you got that wound here at this church or from another church or somewhere else, we all carry wounds. And so we want to be tapped into where God is healing us. That means continuing to seek a relationship with God. So we're going to focus a lot on that connection with God, allowing God to come into our lives, welcoming the Spirit so that we can heal from the inside out. As we start to feel the passion of the Spirit in us, something amazing really happens. We begin to have an invitational spirit. We begin to make space for people at the table who don't look like us. We begin to pay attention to who's not at the table. And the Spirit begins to work in us to continue to grow the community. This is discipleship, is growing in the Spirit as individuals and growing in as a community. Like we talked about today, that real love piece. Loving God with all our heart and being and mind, and loving our neighbor. This is discipleship. And when we continue to tap into those two things, our generosity goes through the roof. We begin to display fruits of the Spirit like joy. So many other things that I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm a horrible pastor. I can't remember the fruits. I'm sorry. I'm nervous. And as we start to think about how God is using us, we begin to cultivate our campus to make way for that ministry to happen. We start seeing the places that are cluttered or not being used to the best of our ability to encourage the Spirit to work in this space. And then we are not afraid to experiment. We trust that the Spirit is leading us and that maybe we don't know the answer. That maybe we might have to try some new things. That maybe we might have to let go of what was to make space for what can be. So that's what we mean by experimentation. And I will never say, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do it forever. Nope, that's not experimentation. Experimentation is trying something on, seeing how it fits, adjusting as needed, and not being afraid to let it go if it doesn't work. To not being afraid of shifting That is how we grow as a church. That is how the Spirit works in this space. But it means that we have to have our hands open to where the Spirit is leading us. And now I'm going to give it to Keith for just a couple more slides, and then we'll open it to questions.
I won't step on him. Okay, here we go. So I'll hold up a book. The entire church council is reading this book, Choosing a Faithful Path. It's designed to help us understand how we change the direction or become more welcoming to people that are not currently attending this church. And it is also designed to help us understand how we can know ourselves a little better, how we can grow disciples, minister to others, and be a blessing to the community. So I'll just read off the bottom. The churches today, I'll read off the bottom of the cover. Churches today are at a critical fork in the road where we need to assess who we are, able, willing, and committed to do the fulfilling call of Christ's commission, which is to go and make disciples. Love your neighbor as yourself. And that's really where the direction of the church council, we're trying to understand. We're only about a third of the way into the book. It's going to take a little bit of time. Some of us are not speed readers, but we'll get there. And more to come on that. Okay, I think I give it back to Marcia.
So is that the next one, or is it? There we go. So I guess I'm just going to wrap this up here. What can you do today? You can read over the document. If you didn't get a copy here, you'll be able to print one online. And praying is probably the most important thing that you can all do to build the life of this church and to help us to grow in our community and in loving our neighbors as ourselves. You can take the survey that's going to go out tomorrow, and that will help the church council and leadership to know how we can move forward. And you can also get involved. I mentioned that before. There's a lot of opportunities for volunteers in the church, and all you have to do is ask somebody, and you can get involved. And you can talk to any of the church council members about any of your concerns or any ideas that you might have. And there's a list of all the council members in this document at the end of this document. So I hope that you'll all take advantage of that. And I hope that you'll all read the document. It's really well done. Lauren's done a lot of work putting that together. And we really appreciate everything that she's doing on our behalf and the new insights that she's bringing to us as a church. So thank you all for coming.
I just want to, is there any questions before we head out? And I'll close this in a prayer. Yes, Eula. Say your question, and I'm going to repeat it in the microphone, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to summarize that. So for all to hear, and for those who are watching online right now in the recording, Eula brought up two things. One, we have a polite culture. Polite culture says you don't go to somebody and tell them why you're upset with them. It's impolite. That's fair. We do live in a polite culture. But I want to challenge that a little bit, because you can still be polite and decent and share your heart. And we give each other permission to do that here in this community. To say, hey, something's really bothering me and I want to talk to you about it. And if that feels too hard to do one-on-one, then that's where the mediator comes in. I'm happy to be a mediator if needed. Now, mediate is different. I will not talk, but I will make sure both people are being heard. That's what we mean by mediator. And we have several in this church who can help mediate something like that. That would be a really good thing to go to one of your church council members for, to help you with that. The second is we had a young lady here for a year, and she left. She went back home, and we didn't send her off. And that feels inconsiderate. And I think you're right, Eula, we missed an opportunity. And I thank you for saying that. That was a great example of direct conversation. Thank you, and that takes courage. So thank you. You're right. We missed our opportunity, and I hope that all of you will speak up when we miss those opportunities so we don't do it again. So we can learn from our mistakes, because we're going to make it. That's going to happen. But we don't have to keep making them. And when we speak up like that, we're able to avoid that in the future. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you for your time today. You've all been given this long document that we summarized in these slides. Take your time to read it. Please pore over it. Make notes if you have to. And then fill out the survey that is in the document itself and will, again, go out tomorrow. We want to hear from you. This is a collaborative effort. We will not know how to move forward without you. So please be in the conversation with us. We look forward to hearing from all of you and for all of your candor, too. We encourage candor, actually. It is a wonderful thing. That is how we start to get into direct conversations, and that's good. That means that we start growing and that things start to get moving within us. So thank you in advance for participating in this conversation. I'm going to close us in prayer, and I'm going to stay here afterwards if you want to talk at all. And this, again, thank you for your time. Let's pray. Holy God, merciful God, you meet us here in this space, and we see evidence of you. We see evidence of your Spirit moving within us. And God, we just want to be people who seek after your love, who seek after representing your love. God, may we continue to come to you. May we be encouraged by what your Spirit is doing here in this space. And may we be a people who are ready to jump in. We lift all of this in your holy and precious name. Amen. Thank you.